You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Good morning. Welcome to Matt Nair on air. Jane Matt Nair, Greg Bach, Calvin Butonoff coming to you live from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment on the live stream as well on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. He's back from Canada.
He made it.
Pat Kreitlow from Mornings with Pat Kreitlow is going to be joining us after the 9:30 news. Lots of things to talk about with Pat, including the Wisconsin state budget, which continues to languish.
Yeah, they're just not going to do their homework.
Let's just not do anything, shall we?
Yeah.
Again, we've talked many times about how good they are at not accomplishing things.
The best.
They really are the best.
Maybe if they don't accomplish it long enough, the budget will just do itself.
It'll fix itself somehow.
Exactly.
Pat Kreitlow joining us after the 9:30 news. Hour number 2, retired Major General Randy Manner will be here, spent more than 30 years in the Army. He has joined us many times over the past few months, and we're going to be talking about a number of things, including Trump's vanity parade on Saturday, Trump's recent appearance at Fort Bragg, where he was encouraging the troops to boo Democrats. And then, of course, the situation between Israel and Iran, which has just happened in the last couple of days and is obviously an ongoing concern. So Randy Manner will be here at 10:06. Last half hour of the show. Yesterday's audio sorbet caused some internal angst. Internal strife here at Civic Media.
Could we say there was, what experts call it, bickering?
I would say some modest bickering.
Yeah.
Over yesterday's audio sorbet, which was about bagels, toasted or no. That was the burning question of that segment.
Pun.
That too. Which, again, devolved into this whole internal debate about cupcakes.
Yeah, it really made its way through the annals.
We started at bagels and toasted or no, and then that went into cupcakes and whether or not cupcakes are a frosting delivery system. So we're going to delve into that after the 10:30 news. Very passionate. People very, very passionate about some of this stuff.
Are you listening, WBA? We're covering the tough topics here.
Where else are you going to find that, huh? Where else?
Paul Harvey. Who?
Yeah.
Edward R. Murrow.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, please.
Please.
And then we'll wrap up the show as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it's the Take a Seat edition. There is a video element involved that you're going to want to stick around for. So that's coming up at the very end of the show, around 10:51-ish. Yeah. Just a reminder, thanks to everybody who took part in our statewide Text to Win Scotty Summer Contest, all kinds of winners. And we want to give a shout out to our grand prize winners who picked up either a getaway to Door County or the Baraboo area and gas to get you there. Got a little gas card. Trace, congratulations listening on WMDX in Madison. And Melissa, who was listening to WHSM in Hayward. We have a whole bunch of music stations, too. Civic Media is more than just talk radio.
Yes.
We have country music stations. We have Hot AC. We have great oldies here on WRJN.
Yes, we do. And then there's also Music of the Stars on Sundays
with Lou
Regani.
Yep.
That is just a festival of the golden age of music. He really curates that every single week.
Great Sunday morning companion for you no matter what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Wanted to start off, though, with this. Derek Van Orden, Wisconsin's own, from the western part of the state. Of course, there was those horrific assassinations over the weekend against 2 Minnesota state lawmakers. One lawmaker and her husband killed, another Minnesota lawmaker and his wife seriously injured. They continue to recover. But Derek Van Orden put on his official account on social media, quote, "I am horrified by the attack on 2 Minnesota state lawmakers. Political violence has no place in America. I fully condemn this attack, along with all forms of political violence and intimidation," unquote.
What a great and measured response.
And a good statement.
Yes.
Right? I think something that we can all agree with.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was a day.
Ah.
Just a day later, on Derek Van Orden's personal accounts. Here is what DVO said, quote, yesterday, a whole pack of election deniers got together and spewed hate. One of them decided to attempt to murder some politicians that were not far left enough for them, unquote. Derek Van Orden, of course, in the 3rd Congressional District. That doesn't seem to be kind of the tone that I would like to see from our elected official.
Well, if one thing what it did was it proved that whomever is running his congressional Twitter, someone else is writing that. He's not. I don't think he has the wherewithal, the brain ability
to put together something that compassionate.
That's simple and easy and to the point and just perfect. Just perfect. Instead, that the second one you read was more on brand for him.
Him.
Spewing absolute conspiracy theory, absolute rhetoric, backed up with no proof,
right.
By the way. And for those who might be like, well, nope, I got into it this happened. The shooting happened on Saturday.
Yes.
And by Saturday afternoon, I had posted something about it on my social media, and someone from my family started doing the same thing DVO was doing. Far left Democrat. The Democrats weren't Democrat enough, and blah, 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 blah. I just waited like 48 hours until news stories came out, and I just said, hey, look, I love you. Happy Father's Day. Here is one story disputing what you're talking about, and there's been no response.
I bet.
And everything he put on my social media is what DVO is saying. Everything. There's no proof to what they're saying. And you are doing a disservice to the memory of those who were murdered, and you're doing a disservice to those who are fighting for their lives, especially from a party who, anytime you want to bring up anything having to do with political violence, they want to bring in the attempt on President Trump's life last year, which was terrible.
Horrible.
But that's all they can talk about. It's not about these two in Minnesota who died. It's about, well, they didn't say enough to us and they were fine with us. It's like, can you just allow this moment to happen?
And acknowledge it.
This can be a thoughts and prayers moment if you want it to be. I mean, that's the thing. It used to be thoughts and prayers when this happened. Now it's, how have we been wronged? And I will use this situation to my advantage to get views, clicks, interaction, and clout.
Well, and this goes along with Senator Mike Lee. We had mentioned this yesterday.
What a trash pile.
Senator Mike Lee from Utah appeared to blame the assassination of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman on the left. This is what Mike Lee posted on social media. This is what happens when Marxists don't get their way. And he also posted another social media post with a photo of the gunman in a mask,
yes, and
then his actual face, and said, I'm drawing a blank now. It was a slam against Tim Walz.
Nightmare on Wall Street.
Nightmare on Wall Street.
Yes, they've been doing their marked best to take this out on Tim Walz as well.
Yes. So Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota, after Mike Lee posted that, actually waited to confront him about this.
Yeah.
She walked across the chamber, out into the hall, asked to talk with Mike Lee. Tina Smith says, quote, people like you and me don't talk to each other that much, but this feels like something we really need to talk about face to face. She said the sad reality is that for senators and other prominent elected officials, getting threats directed at you or your family is becoming commonplace. It's not unusual. So everybody, regardless of party, can relate to what it means to wake up and find out that your name is on a list that someone wants to kill. By the way, Mark Pocan, Tammy Baldwin, and Gwen Moore were on this suspects list.
Yeah.
Lee's office did not respond to a request for comment. Tina Smith has declined to say exactly what Lee told her when she confronted him. He indicated, of course, he meant no harm, but these things do cause harm. Of course, words have power.
Absolutely.
Words have power. Words mean... The pen is They say the pen is mightier than the sword for a reason.
Mm-hmm. And the tweet seems to be even more powerful nowadays. And frankly, I didn't mean to do anything. I didn't mean anything from it. I'm sorry. That's a 7-year-old's excuse.
I didn't mean anything by it. Was it, can't you take a joke?
Yeah, that is what a child says when they get in trouble. Instead of just saying, you know what, I was wrong. Or honestly, be Mike Lee about it. Be like, I said what I said.
Well, I don't think Mike Lee, I don't even think Derek Van Orden, all they're doing is following the example of the person at the top of that party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Donald Trump.
Yes.
President Trump asked yesterday, have you called Governor Walz yet? Here is how our president replied, quote, I don't want to call him. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. Why would I call? I could call him and say, hi, how are you doing? He's a mess. I could be nice and call him, but why waste time, unquote. That is why our lawmakers feel completely fine with posting stuff like that because they look to the top. They look to how Donald Trump behaves. And
there's no consequences. And once again, this is a situation where I will throw it into the laps of those who listen to us and those who watch us and disagree with 98% of the things we talk about. How is this acceptable behavior from your party leader, our president, and arguably the most powerful man in the world? And do not throw at me, well, did Tim Walz call Donald Trump when his life was Nope, that's not the question right now. We're talking about in the moment and why the president of the United States of America gets to say such, and I'll say it, idiotic things to the press that makes him look trite and completely like a child. This is all child behavior.
Yes, it is.
This is all child behavior. Yes. We have elected children.
And what I always go back to is, will you raise your child to behave the way that Donald Trump does?
Yeah.
Is this what we're doing now with our kids? You never take responsibility unless things worked out.
Yes.
You never take responsibility unless things went your way. You blame someone else. Mm-hmm. You can belittle, demean, whatever, especially when people are grieving. No problem.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want.
It's not my problem.
You can say whatever you want to people. There are no consequences.
Yep. And if
is this how we're raising our kids now?
I mean, I thought this was the party of personal responsibility. But obviously, in the past, I don't know how many years now, that has gone to the wayside. I don't expect any. I mean, if Mike Lee, if he said, well, I didn't mean anything by it, that's it. Like I said, it's child's answer. I would pay money to charity to find out exactly what he said to
Tina Smith.
Because if he cowered down and said, I'm sorry, or you're right, or whatever, then you don't believe in what you're saying anyways. It's about clout. Because once you're confronted, like I said, if you really believed it, he should have said, deal with it.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Right.
But if he had any sort of apology he doesn't believe this stuff. It's not what he's
just doing it for attention.
It's an act to make dear leader not look at him and say, wait, is Mike Lee not loyal enough?
I love that Mike Lee. I love that Mike Lee.
Says the right things to the right people all the time.
Join the conversation, 855-752-4842. Stay close. You are listening to Matt Nair on Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
Good morning. Welcome to Matt Nair on Air. Jane Matt Nair, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board. Coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter after the 9:30 news. The host of Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, the aforementioned Pat Kreitlow, will be joining us to talk all things Wisconsin, so I hope you can stick around for that. Hour number 2 after 10 o'clock, the 10 o'clock news. Retired Major General Randy Manner will be here. He has joined us numerous times over the past few months, and we're going to talk about a number of things, including the big ego parade on over the weekend for Donald Trump's 79th birthday and his recent speech at Fort Bragg, and, of course, the ongoing situation now between Israel and Iran. That's all coming up with Randy Manner after 10 o'clock. I did want to spend just a little time talking about this from the Wisconsin Examiner, Jennifer Shute, with the byline, 2/3 of those in a nonpartisan poll view the GOP's budget bill unfavorably, 2/3. And we've been seeing more of this in the last couple of days, that the more people learn about this budget bill, the less they like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The new survey finds nearly 2/3 of those polled, 64%, do not support the tax policy changes and spending cuts Republicans have included. When broken down, 13% of Democrats, 27% of independents view it favorably.
I mean, Jane, why wouldn't people like this? They only talked about it in the middle of the night and passed it in the middle of the night and did everything when, C-SPAN the cameras were on when it was happening.
Right.
But I mean, we trusted them to do to have our best interest in mind.
Of course we did.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which, by the way, is headed by a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that again. The head of the CBO, the Congressional Budget Group, is headed by a Republican. And the CBO has said this is going to massively explode our deficit.
Ron Johnson has said that.
Yes.
Ron Johnson has
of
said
all people.
to cut even more from poor people and working people and the working poor and all of us who are just normal working class. We needed to cut more because under this model, it would still increase the deficit by, what was it, $3 trillion?
It's a big jump.
Yeah. And what's funny is that we've talked extensively about the Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP benefit, the big cuts, the famous programs. But man, Jane, there are so many tiny little ones in there. And
yes.
I mean, the one that says we can't do any sort of oversight on AI for a decade.
Yeah. They slipped that in.
My God.
And then again, there are all these lawmakers going, oh, gosh, I didn't know that was in there.
I should have read it, Jane.
That seems bad.
Yeah.
Another thing in the budget bill that seems bad, it calls for the outright sale of public lands. So it mandates selling between 2 and 3 million acres of lands managed by the Bureau of Land Management to be put up for sale to any interested party. We are talking about 250 million acres of public lands will be eligible to be sold by any interested party.
And I think if this was 10, 15 years ago, a lot of people would say, oh, the oil people are going to come in. I don't think that's what's going to be. It's going to be hedge funds and private equity groups who are going to come in and put up a bunch of housing and then charge a bunch of rent for it. And more people will not be able to buy homes. This is not about affordable housing.
No.
It's not even about oil. Like, that's the thing is, like, we talked to Mr. Global about this. I doubt that they're going to be putting bids in to dig in these areas. It's going to be about selling it off to the highest bidder who wants to build 5,000 homes.
Really pricey ones.
Really pricey ones, and get people in there so they can make even more money on it. This is about... This is not about, this is about strip mining the American dream, essentially.
Absolutely. We're talking about land in 11 states: Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, Utah, Washington, and Wyoming. The provision has very limited exemptions: wilderness study areas, areas of critical environmental concern, critical habitat, all considered eligible for sale. Eligible for sale.
Again.
So again, on those limited restrictions, that still means more than 250 million acres of public lands that we hike on and fish on and camp on will be eligible to be sold to any interested party. And native tribes do not get first chance to bid on them either.
I'll bet you millionaires and billionaires who even have a good heart say, I'll buy the land and just keep it the way it is, will be denied. And take us out of the equation for camping, hiking, and hunting. The animals whose entire migratory patterns, all their living patterns, all the things are going to be disrupted by us coming in and absolutely just destroying the world they live in. It will be that sort of thing has massive repercussions, and this is, once again, congressman didn't read this.
Well, but again, we're not going to learn about the repercussions because we're not going to look at environmental impacts anymore.
No.
That's not even going to be.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, it's the environment.
Who cares?
It's a deer. Who
Just
cares?
build it.
Yeah.
Whatever. We're going to build,
Yep.
and drill.
That's how. Maybe we'll build one of those manufacturing places that will make all those iPhones here in America. We haven't thought of that.
That's an idea.
I can't wait to pay $30,000 for an iPhone.
We have news coming up next, and then when we return, he hosts Mornings with Pat Kreitlow across the network from 6 to 9 a.m. Pat Kreitlow will be here. Stay close. You are listening to Matt Nair on Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome to Matt Nair on Air. Jane Matt Nair, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board. Coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We got Brewers baseball action coming up later on today. Our broadcast starts at 6:30. The Crew at the Cubs. You can listen to the game on terrestrial radio on WRCE in Richland Center, WISS in Oshkosh, WRJN here in Racine and Kenosha, WCQM in Park Falls, and WBZH in Hayward. Crew at the Cubs. Our broadcast starts tonight at 6:30. He is the host of Mornings with Pat Kreitlow across the network from 6 to 9 a.m. Back from adventures in Canada, Pat Kreitlow is here. Good morning, Pat. How you doing?
Good day, eh? How's it going?
Good day, eh? Yeah.
Do you feel funnier?
Do I feel funnier?
Yeah.
No, I feel fatter. I had poutine for breakfast yesterday.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Again, how did we not invent this in Wisconsin? We've got the cheese curds. We love gravy. We love French fries. Why did nobody else think to put this in a bowl before Canada did? God bless you, Canada. That was so good.
And I went to lunch with a friend yesterday, and they love going to Montreal, and we talked about poutine. For me, there's too much going on. There's too
Well, I gotta
many,
go, everybody.
There's
See you
too
later.
many
It's been good.
things in the poutine. I can see the gravy and the fries with curds on the side, but I don't know that I want all that big mush all together.
Oh, I love that big mush. It was amazing, along with some Tim Hortons coffee and a donut from there.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's all good. Which I got to do 2 mornings in a row since our Sunday flight home was canceled and we had to stay an additional 24 hours. But we did manage to pull off the show yesterday from Canada, giving us, I believe, Civic Media's first international
Yes,
show.
our first international broadcast, Pat Kreitlow. Well done.
So does that does not make me Mr. Global or Mr. Worldwide. I believe Pitbull has that one.
I think
I'm
it
not an
qualifies you
international
for
man
a
of mystery.
Juno.
I'll take whatever I can get for having to go through all that yesterday. But we did it. We're back home in Chippewa Falls, and happy to be here.
I was listening on the way in this morning, and I did hear you, and this made me think of a friend who calls it the dummy check. And before she leaves a hotel room or before she leaves anywhere to go to the airport, she does one more spin and checks all the closets and everything. Because we've all done this, Pat. We have left something when we're heading to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, this leads into my commercial for Apple tags or Air tags or whatever other things are out there that you use. We had left our friend's house. We were on our way to the airport. The tag gives you an alert when you're so far away from it, and it says on my phone, you and your luggage have become separated. I'm thinking, no, I haven't. My luggage is in the back of the car here.
In the trunk.
It's in the trunk, yeah, but I put the AirTag in the toiletry bag so that it wouldn't be, too easy for somebody to remove it with nefarious purposes.
Sure.
And sure enough, I left the toiletry bag in the facilities, and we had to go back for that.
Nice.
So,
well, at least you knew. You didn't get on the plane and then you realized, I left my thing there.
I would have had my glasses and contacts and everything else there. So yeah, it's good to the technology.
Dummy check.
Dummy check.
Like extra round before you leave the hotel room or wherever you're going. This was breaking as we were coming on the air this morning, Pat. So I think we'll start here about the state Supreme Court ruling, which strikes down some of the 2018 lame duck laws that attempted to remove powers from Attorney General Josh Kaul. So again, this is within the last hour or so that this broke.
And the real news is that this was unanimous. It was 7-0, saying that lame duck session, restricting some of Josh Kaul's powers shortly after he won election, was too far in terms of a separation of powers. And not that most folks follow this, but I'm sure some folks were thinking, wait a minute, I thought they upheld all the lame duck laws. Well, yes and no. When a conservative-controlled court upheld the lame duck laws a few years back, they did, in that ruling, leave open the door for future challenges that were a bit more specific. And that's what this ruling is. It looked at specific applications of the law and said, and even the conservative justices agreed, that in these specific cases, the Republican-led legislature and its Joint Finance Committee cannot stop the State Department of Justice from engaging in settling certain civil lawsuits, that is a separation of powers. And so you had all the justices today agreeing with that. And it just makes me wonder how many of those conservative justices, saw the split in legal definition, and how many were, well, back then going, oh, yeah, of course I'm going to stick up for the Republican side. Now
Right.
they're looking at it and going, yeah, that was probably an overreach.
Yeah.
and getting back on the right side of, the Constitution.
Oh, that pesky thing, that Constitution thing. Yeah, so it's like nice try and nice overreach, guys. And you don't get to have a snit because you lost an election and then attempt to strip powers from the party that beat you. That's essentially what this is.
Yes, but unfortunately, it's. I mean, look how late this is coming.
Right?
These laws were passed in 2018. Josh Kaul, fortunately, won another term in office, so that this case is still relevant. We had to wait for the Supreme Court to turn over because of the voters all these years later for them to get back on the right side of the law. So, yes, justice was eventually done, but always how they got away with it for so long.
But this is just part and parcel of what the Republicans in Madison are trying to do at every step. It's like defang the AG. They want to take away powers from the governor. They can't pass something in the Assembly and the Senate. They're going to put it in the Constitution. They're going to diminish the seats on committees. They're going to, even though fair maps happen, we're gonna fight until instead of just for a moment saying, hey, let's compromise 10% more of the time.
Yeah. No,
Just
that has
10.
never been.
No, it's
Just 10.
And this current budget, quote unquote, proposal, that's that word's doing a lot of heavy lifting. Proposal, stripping everything out, and now just saying, well, if you don't like it, too bad, and trying to make Tony Evers the bad guy.
Again, with a $4 billion surplus,
Yep.
There's ample room for win-win. You can get, and Governor Evers was willing to meet them on the tax cut end of it, and they were unwilling to meet him. So now you get this chatter that we talked about this morning from Senator Chris Kappinga of Waukesha County saying, well, maybe we shouldn't even pass a budget, which is something that I said back in January. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't pass a budget because they're just so tired of Governor Evers, partial veto powers, being able to prevent them from ruling with an iron fist the way that they'd love to on this stuff.
A question I have for you, Pat, because I don't know the procedure. I know that in U.S. form, we have to pass a budget. It's in the Constitution. That's why we constantly see CR resolutions and things of
Kicking
that
it
nature.
down the road.
Does Wisconsin have the same thing? Or if we do, because with regard to what happened in Minnesota, one of the reasons why Democrats voted for that thing is because the government would have shut down July 1. Is that the if they don't pass a budget is Kapenga, right?
Yeah.
Kapenga's
Kapenga, yeah.
delight.
Yeah.
Does
Yep.
that just happen? Does Wisconsin just shut down?
No. The way that Wisconsin wrote its rules is that if there is no state budget, then the current budget, instead of expiring on June 30th, will just continue. When I was my first year in the legislature, 2007, we didn't get a budget done until the middle of November because of fights over health care. Republicans did not want to go along with our plans for more affordable health care. So the old budget continued. And the point I was making this morning is that this is now probably what Republicans want, because while there won't be anything new in it, it also will enable them to say, well, this is the most fiscally conservative thing to do. So the most fiscally conservative thing to do is to be lazy and
Yes.
go home
Yes.
and not do your job. And with a $4 billion surplus, not fix underfunded schools and things like that. So the surplus sits there. And as we were saying 4 years ago, they're hoping that in next year's gubernatorial election, if a Republican wins, now they'll address the surplus by giving it all back to tax cuts, toward the wealthy. So not passing a budget, it does have political risk, but they're also looking at it as a way to say, oh, this was our only option. No, your option was to do your job and actually negotiate.
If you're just joining us, Pat Kreitlow is our guest. He is the host of Mornings with Pat Kreitlow across the network from 6 to 9 a.m., talking about the Wisconsin budget, and now something sent out by Chris Kapenga essentially saying, yeah, if we can't agree, then we're just not going to pass anything. And I thought it was because I was listening to you on the way in, Pat, that he even rejected the proposals from the Joint Finance Committee, which we know traveled around the state and listened allegedly to people's concerns and then rejected everything the people wanted and came up with their own budget, and he still rejected that.
Yeah, and I think that was partially a head fake. They're trying to look like, a maverick when I think this may actually be the caucus's position, and he's kind of the canary in the coal mine. He's floating the trial balloon, whatever analogy that you want to use. But I thought it was really something when he said in his social media post about it, he was criticizing the Joint Finance Committee version written by his fellow Republicans, that it doesn't do enough to address wasteful spending. Well, who's been controlling the legislature for 14 years? If you're attacking wasteful spending, I mean, you're telling on yourself.
Yeah. Also, get your own material, bro. Ron Johnson's been doing this at the federal level for weeks now. Are you our little Ron Johnson? Mm-hmm.
What happened to GOAT? What happened to GOAT?
That's right.
In Wisconsin.
Oh my gosh. I completely forgot about the Wisconsin Legislative Republicans version of Doge.
Yes.
I got to look it up. I'm sorry.
What
government
happened?
oversight.
You have something, and they're going to find all of
Accountability
this
team.
waste and fraud and abuse in Wisconsin. Again, using Doge as their model, and it was all about GOAT. And it goes back it goes back to what you said, Pat. They're auditing themselves or they were supposed to be auditing themselves because they're the ones who have been in control for almost 15 years.
They've become the Elmer Fudd of fraud hunting. Be very quiet. I'm hunting for waste, fraud, and abuse.
It says
and not finding it.
Here, according to WPR News, in an article put out in March of this year, Wisconsin's version of Doge called GOAT is getting started. It stands for the Committee on Government Operations, Accountability, and Transparency, or GOAT.
GOAT. Mm-hmm.
That should be the official. Every time that they convene, it should be GOAT, and then just the Bulls intro from 1990s.
We can make an intro for
I
them.
really think that should happen.
We can do that.
Yeah.
There is some talent in that building.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
we got resources. But yeah, that has completely disappeared. When is the last time any of our Republican lawmakers have been touting all the great work of GOAT?
Well, probably.
And if they
go on,
if they can't, I just think it lends into this potential strategy of saying, well, we're just not going to pass anything. And look, with enough money in political ads next year, maybe they can convince voters of that. But I think voters would look at it instead and go, you guys keep taking like 6 to 9 month paid vacations every year. Why don't you do some work?
Yeah, get something done, maybe. There's a thought. We're going to continue our conversation with Pat Kreitlow. You can join us at 855-752-4842. Stay close. You are listening to Matt and Air on Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
Good morning. Welcome to Matt and Air on Air. Jane Matt and Air, Greg Bach, Calvitini on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can join us. Call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up later on today, 2 to 4 on the Todd Alba Show around 2:35. Todd will talk with James Small. He's a rural EMS outreach program manager at the UW School of Medicine to talk about the status of rural EMS response. They are hurting and they need more folks. And in the 3 o'clock hour of Todd's show today, it's a Tex-Mex fast food edition of What's Worse. Love What's Worse.
Oh, now I want a burrito.
Yeah.
Not until you listen later on today. Todd Alba from 2 to 4 p.m. Our guest you can catch every weekday morning from 6 to 9 across the network. Pat Kreitlow, host of Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, is our guest. And we wanted to talk a little bit. We were talking about, good heavens, the Wisconsin Supreme Court all agreed on something, which is pretty remarkable. Also kind of remarkable, or maybe not, was it Friday? It was Friday when President Trump essentially told ICE to back off on farm raids, back off on restaurant raids, back off on hotel raids. That's over. That's over.
Allegedly, and to focus on those big bad sanctuary cities,
Right,
where apparently the work that they do for the economy is different because it's in a blue city as
Right,
opposed to working on a farm or say at Mar-a-Lago or other hotels and resorts and things like that. So again, it's a nakedly partisan move to say, well, we're going after brown people, but we're going to go after brown people more in blue cities than we are in red states. But either way, we're trying to make the white people happy that don't want any brown people around.
Well,
okay, got it.
Yeah, and I think, this goes back to the beginning, and we talked about this at the very beginning. He is nothing if not transactional, our president.
Right.
So you do something for me, maybe I'll do something for you. And even before he was reelected, we were talking about he will dole out favors depending upon who donates to him the most. If you don't help him, if you don't donate to him, if you don't give him money, you're on your own. It doesn't matter which state you are. Look at Sarah Huckabee Sanders asked for help in Arkansas after some storms. Josh Hawley asked for Kansas. West Virginia just got crushed by flash flooding. They've lost 6 people have died in West Virginia, and now FEMA's gone.
But Jane, he said to the oil industry executives, you raise $1 billion for me and I'll get rid of all the environmental laws. And I don't know what the final tally was, but he's got work to do transferring all of that middle class wealth, to things like oil company executives and things like. We don't have money just lying around for natural disasters or things like that. I got to take care of the people who took care of me.
Yeah,
which is not the flood victims in West Virginia or storm victims in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, wherever.
If you won't make a simple phone call to Governor Walz in Minnesota to say, "Hey, how you doing? It's tragedy," even for a base level surfacing thing, not even compassion, just doing it because that's what the president does. He's not going to do this. And I want to dispel all the rumors of anyone who's see these coming through for them. No, it's because probably 2 or 3 billionaires said, hey, I got a lot of people who work in the fields. I got a lot of people who work at restaurants and hotels. Can you please
back off?
Back off? Yeah. It's not for the people. It's for those guys.
That's right.
That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
And he heard from enough of them about this particular business sector because it is always about business. In business, we've all read A Christmas Carol and everything else. Some people see absolutely no room for compassion in business. It's just, does it make me money? Does it keep me in power? And I don't have time to go through, as Trump called it, a waste of time to call the governor of Minnesota, who just lost a friend and had this terrible tragedy befall them by somebody who was clearly triggered, no pun intended, by the language that Trump and others use.
We talked about this before you joined us in the first half an hour of the show, Pat. And I go back to, again, this is why Derek Van Orden, this is why Mike Lee, this is why so many other Republican politicians they don't think twice about posting heartless, cruel things because they're just following the example at the top, which is Donald Trump. And apparently now we are teaching our children to never accept responsibility only if it's good, always blame other people, I mean, these are his attributes. This is who this man is.
Well, soulless. I mean, it's what it is. And I think even though we come back to this moment every so often, I think even now we may underestimate the importance of this one event, which seemed perfectly normal at the time, but now it would be so abnormal. And that would be John McCain taking the microphone away from a woman who was saying that Barack Obama's not an American, etc. And John McCain said, nope, he is an American. He is a good and decent man. We just happen to disagree. You cannot possibly have a moment like that anymore on that side of the political spectrum. And I mean, again, it shouldn't be a historic moment, but in hindsight, gosh, was it ever?
Yeah.
I was thinking about that this morning. We were talking about the budget, and I just thought in my head, I even say it out loud. I just said, I wish John McCain were still alive, because I just want to see him walk down to the floor of the Senate and look at look at the president of the Senate and just thumbs down and walk away. But
We do not have those profiles encouraged anymore. Occasionally, people express concern. A Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, but that's all we get.
Lisa Murkowski is so concerned. I just can't take it anymore.
Concerned.
They're always concerned.
Join him weekday mornings across the network, 6 to 9 mornings with Pat Kreitlow. Thank you so very much, Pat. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you. See you later.
We got news coming up next. Stay close. You are listening to Matt and Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.